Okay, looks like we have a few people, and welcome to the meeting. I hope everyone can hear me and everyone can see the slides. Yep. Again, thanks again for coming. So again, I think this is the usual stuff. Always be polite. We're gonna roughly follow the agenda. There'll be a chance to bring up anything. Just make sure that it's at the end so we don't lose track. If you're not talking, please remember to mute your mic and don't interrupt until question sections. There'll be definitely opportunity to ask questions at each interval. And because being respectful of time, we have to be concise and to the point with questions and discussion. So not too much rambling. Right. So before we go ahead, this is the agenda. And Nuwa, are you recording? Or AJ, you already recording?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is the agenda. We're going to go through a few of this. Now, before we begin, does anyone want to add anything to this agenda? Mm, I'll wait for 10 seconds. Okay, great. Let's move on. So, yeah. All right. So, as you probably know, we raised, I think, significant amounts of money from the ZCS, the Zero Crowdfunding System. I think it was about maybe 20 over thousand US dollars. So thanks a lot for everyone who donated. And if we haven't given you a shout out yet, please just let Muggers know and we will happily place you in that, you know. So we're really, really thankful to that. And I think the total cost was like 32,000. So the team did have to come up with the balance, but it really helped us, especially during those tough times. Our Trail of Bits, for those who don't know, is probably like the most well known and, in my opinion, the best audit company. They don't come cheap. And we engage them to basically do an audit just of the cryptographic library, of the Lelantus cryptographic library. Now, we would have liked a more complete, that means like everything be audited at once, but that was estimated to cost around 96,000. So we decided to actually limit it to the Lelantus portions that were important. Now, on top of that, although they did audit the cryptographic library, they also actually, but they had some spare time and did actually take a look roughly at the implementation. I think with generally good results. So, as you can see, we raised the money by donations. The rest of it came from the Zcoin Development Fund. The audit was, well, there was a few typos in the Landis academic paper and some parts which were, I guess, like a bit vague, and that's all being fixed by Aaron right now. No problems. Um, Now there was one small, I wouldn't call it. It was a, I would say, a medium or is it high severity bug, and that actually was from work in progress code being merged into the review, mainly because they had a really like fixed time limit to actually audit. Like we only had 1 week for them to audit, so we were just trying to throw as much information as we can at them. And as a result, we gave them work in progress code, which on retrospect should not have been done. And they found an error there, but that was quickly, easily fixed. And we were confident that had it been reviewed, it would have been caught. So all the fixes to the issue have been incorporated, and I think we've already made public the code on the Lelantus branch on GitHub. So yeah, that's the Trail of Bits update. Now there is a second update, which is the Lelantus cryptography audit, and that was So Trail of Bits did kind of like checking the code implementation of Lelantus on the cryptographic end, but we also engage a separate cryptographer who has a lot of experience in this field to actually dig into the cryptography of Lelantus itself. Now, Lelantus actually already has been, presented at various conferences and with all these cryptographers involved. But it's always good to have a very, very close eye on it. And indeed, a small vulnerability was found. It may have led to inflations, but thankfully, it's a very, very easy fix. And we're very glad that we have done this cryptographic audit. So the results, the report is actually kind of done. He's just like cleaning it up. This audit cost about, if I'm not mistaken, 10 to 12,000 US dollars. I think we're getting really good value for our money, and we will release the results of this pretty soon once we have patched everything. But the fix to the code is just a one-liner, so there's no big change required there. So looks like there's no breaking issues, and Lelantus is still ready for launch, thankfully. Yeah. So before we go on, are there any questions regarding the two audits that I talked about? I'll wait for a few seconds. Okay, I guess no questions. All right, so we're moving on to the Lelantus development update, and things are generally going smooth. So we were I think we kind of lost 2 weeks of work when dealing with the previous inflation bug, but we are now back on track. Actually, the work is more or less completed, and it's just waiting a final review by our lead developer Peter before pushing it to testnet. We want to make sure that he's satisfied with everything. We have several developers looking at it, but we want to make sure that he understands, every single portion of the code. Again, as we mentioned, we had to implement a minor fix to address the concerns raised by the ABDK consulting. That's relatively easy to fix. And you'll see that the halving on the 23rd of September will come first before the Lelantus binary release. We don't want to rush it, but it's not a very significant delay anyway. And we'll be releasing the Qt wallet out first, and we will need to do a bit of front end work for modification with the Electron GUI. I don't think that's a very big task as well. So we do expect for the revised code to be pushed, and any subsequent fixes to be made public next week. So basically, we will be working on this code like fully public from next week, and it should be just like minor touch ups and stuff like that. Now, after the testnet launch, which we hope to release it sometime next week, fingers crossed, as if Peter can complete the audit, or the internal audit. Oh my gosh, my scan is just confirmed transactions. Okay. And after testnet, we have, we plan to have a leeway period of 1 month to 6 weeks for activation. We'll take a look at see how smooth the testnet launch goes, and then we make that decision then. So we're not too far off, and we thank you for your patience. And that's actually basically it for the Lelantus development update. And does anyone have questions on this? Okay, no questions. Great. So, all right, the big one, disclosure of bug in Zcoin. That happened, what, two, feels like forever, like 2 to 3 weeks ago. And basically, we have already made the disclosure. I mean, I wouldn't bore you with the details. It's all on our blog. And basically, what had happened was we had inherited a bug from Bitcoin Core, that contain actually a critical inflation bug. So the bug in Bitcoin actually came in Bitcoin version 14. When the bug was disclosed, we were actually on Bitcoin Core 13. We did check on it, and because we are like, oh yeah, we're on Core 13, we weren't affected. And therefore, we're like, okay, right, like we're not affected and we're good on that. Now, although the bug came in Bitcoin Core 014, it was only patched in Bitcoin in Bitcoin version 16.3. So that's quite a few versions down the line. So the bug was actually live on Bitcoin for a very long time. But because to acquire you would to exploit this bug, you would need to have a rogue miner that has enough power to solve a block. So on Bitcoin Core, that's I guess a lot more difficult. And I mean, on retrospect, like we did review the code. It wasn't as if our developers did not look through the code. There were reviews, but first of all, I guess we kind of wrongly assumed that Bitcoin Core would not have such a catastrophic bug, and secondly, we should have checked again, run through all the CVEs, or rather like the critical vulnerability disclosures again when we upgraded from Bitcoin 13 to Bitcoin 14. So yeah, the attack occurred on 14th of August. We managed to detect it quite quickly, and very, very like the attack was quite quickly generated about 380,000 Zcoin, which is, well, I mean, we have a circulating supply of 10 million, so that's quite a significant portion, but not too big. But luckily, with the assistance of many of the mining pools, we actually managed to deploy a hotfix really quickly and managed to freeze about, well, I guess like almost half of it, and the rest have gone to exchanges, some which have been converted, but many of them are still freezing a substantial amount of Zcoin deposited. The process to unfreeze this is not that simple, because a lot of these exchanges require police reports, legal action, and stuff like that, which we are navigating. I will not comment exactly how we are doing it, just because to increase the chances of success. We're relatively confident that we can get a return of funds or destruction of funds. I guess the question is that if we manage to get this, like, unconverted Z coin from it, what would we do with it? My personal opinion is that we should get like Binance or whatever to send it to a burn address and just take it out of supply. um, Now, some have suggested that you be used for the development funds, but I think that is a bit perverse, because it seems like people might accuse us of creating this bug and then we profited from it. I really don't. I rather just avoid all of that. So that's why we definitely are in favor of those Zcoin, if we manage to unlock them, to be sent to a burn address, and we will announce it so we can reduce the inflation amount. Now, we did disable Sigma transactions as a temporary safety precaution, but we have reactivated it, and Sigma transactions are fully functional right now. So, yeah, does anyone have any questions on this particular bug right now? There's a blog post on this that goes into more detail, but does anyone have comments on this? Yeah.
Uh, this is just kind of a dumb thought, but what if during the burn process, prior to a complete burn, there was a Sigma mint in order to kind of just uh, have some good come out of this, that it's increasing the anonymity set before it's burnt.
But how do we prove that we burnt it though? If we send it to Sigma and then spend it, you know what I mean? uh, yeah. We have to show everyone that we burnt it, right? And by going through the anonymization mechanism, we're kind of making that not so transparent. And honestly, I mean, the Sigma, I mean, like, since Lelantus is going to launch soon, I'm actually not too concerned about the Sigma anonymity set. So yeah.
Send me the coins, Ruben. I'll burn them.
All right. Does anyone have any questions on this? This process is going to be quite slow, but we have some good relationships, and I've been in touch with the relevant people at the exchange. We're positive, no promises, but I think I'm quite confident that we should get a good result. But yeah, we don't know. Yeah. Okay, if there are no questions on this, we'll move to this thingy. So there's been a poll on the forums, which has been pretty one-sided, which is, I guess, a good thing for us. But I just wanted to make sure that we bring it up at this community meeting so that anyone can um, give their comments on this, right? So because of the recent hacks, especially when we are now, deploying Lelantus technology, and although we've done all that we can, we've done through audits, we've done through shits can still happen, right? And we were like thinking like, all right, if something of this nature happens again, uh should the core team have an ability to basically turn off certain features to mitigate any damage, like, let's turn off Lelantus transactions, let's like turn off chain locks or turn off instant send, which may make the attack a lot harder to resolve. Now, this is obviously a huge centralization and it's a huge amount of power to the core team. But again, we're only asking this for 1 year. That means we want to kind of like have a period to make sure that all this is deployed. There's no like major issues, and then after that, that switch will automatically turn off and it's just released into the WoW. Um, it's kind of like an emergency break. And I think one of the things is that we're not just talking about Lelantus, but because of chain locks. Because, like for example, if a hack like what happened on in August happened with chain locks on, it may have been impossible for us to stop it because we would have then required the cooperation of Z nodes as well, together with the pools, which makes things really, really difficult. Which is great for decentralization, but really bad when trying to resolve a hack like that. So again, we're only proposing for a period of 1 year from the time of activation. It does have some additional like development costs. It adds about maybe 2 weeks ish on development time. We're not doing it the same way like Dash. We're doing it a lot simpler, as it's a simple feature for us to basically send a sort of like emergency message that would turn off all these features on a consensus level and be able to turn it back on later. So so far the poll has been like almost unanimously in favor of this. But we are open to hear anyone's comments on this. Yeah. Right. So I guess that's a yes. Or are there any comments on this?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize it was push to talk. I'm in favor of it, but however, I would recommend there be some sort of sunset plan. So if you're saying that it's going to be for a year, it might make sense that in the last 3 months of the year, we have some sort of plan in place to actually ensure that not only is the Spork process being removed, but also kind of any remnants of it being wiped out. Also, if
Yeah. I mean, you'll be in the code. Like once we deploy this feature, it'll say like after this block, that feature is turned off, right? So are you
also how
saying
much
that? Yeah.
uh,
Sorry.
Also, how much coverage does the Spork functionality, or how much are we planning to have on Zcoin? Because I know on Dash it's like God mode on chain, right? It's
Mhm.
you can basically turn off any of the major functionalities on Dash.
Yeah.
Do we need to grant that much power to the Sporks on Zcoin, or can we
The only three things that we want to do is Lelantus chain locks and instant send, which is a significant proportion of the thing. But like if you want to stop any sort of inflation attacks, you kind of need all of this, right? Um, yeah,
would
I'm
it,
not sure. Yeah.
so would
So,
it instant send be necessary to be like disabled? Because all that does is lock the transaction for guaranteeing that the Z nodes are or the Z nodes are ensuring a transaction will be included in the next block. If chain lock there are no chain locks present, then if someone creates like an invalid like the inflation attack that you were mentioning earlier, with
Mhm.
something like that, if the block becomes invalidated, and the actual transaction that was created becomes invalid, like the process of injecting new coins, then the Z-nodes shouldn't be able to actually include that in a future block because they wouldn't meet the standards anymore, I guess.
Sure.
Or
I
I
mean,
guess that's just really
instant hasn't
hypothesizing.
actually come on yet, so I guess I mean like it was just more like, all right, maybe we need instant send, but you do bring up a good point. Like, should we not have instant send on? But I don't know, like I'm just trying to think, like, are we hurting the security of the network, or like, like if we turn off instant send, what's the impact to the users?
Well, I wouldn't say turn off instance send in general, but maybe not have it in the purview of Spork functionality. Maybe I'm not sure.
Not have it as a what? Sorry.
Uh, maybe not like does does sorry does the Spork functionality really need control over instance, and is there as much risk as there is with like chain locks or
Probably
with
not. Probably
browsers?
not. I think Lelantus and Chainlocks are the most critical ones. Because I don't think exchanges are going to accept instant send yet. But who knows? Like, because like guys like Dash have been like really trying to promote the use of instant send, and some of the minor exchanges have accepted that. I'm just wondering, right? Like, I think by the time someone uses instant send, we already means like it's already gone anyway, right? It's just a matter of how many confirmations versus zero confirmations, right? I don't know. I have to talk to Peter on this, and maybe with the other dev team, because we just don't want to have like anything that kind of fucks up our um kind of like messes up the recovery process. Like, maybe it's stuck in like the Z node mempool and stuff like that. But I think you bring up a good point. Like, do we really need the ability to turn off instant send? But yeah, I think that will be looked at. I'll speak to the dev team on that. Yeah. Okay, does anyone have any concerns on this? If not, we are moving on. I know this is not contractual, but generally, silence cannot mean assent. But if anyone feels violently of this, they should speak now. Okay, guess everyone's okay with this. All right. As you have seen, in the chat, everyone's asking, why don't we have a first halving post, which we now do. I don't think this is anything new. Basically, we are having our first halving on the 24th of September. Block rewards will be dropping by half, as the name implies. And just a reminder that this is actually going to be the biggest drop of inflation at any single point in time in the entire. This will be the biggest, like, drop of inflation ever in the entire Zcoin history, and even in the future. It's almost like a halving, 25% to 12%. Of course, depending on how fast the blocks actually come, but it is quite a huge drop. Now, we've gone through this before. Basically, founder rewards ends. Z-Nodes gets a little bit more percentage, but still on absolute terms, it's still lesser. The founder rewards totally cease, and they actually go towards development. As you can see, although the percentage has increased, the amount of objectively isn't a huge increase because of the halving. So to maintain the same level of development would have been 12%, but we got a little bit more and have it at 15%. Miners have a slight drop from 56% to 50%, but of course, there's a big drop in actual rewards to them. So this is something that we are particularly cognizant of, especially with the lots of 51% attacks. And we hope to get chain locks soonish, so that we can stop this type of attacks. Jackmo, I saw your question. I'll jump back into that right after I finish this. Now, there was discussion. We created this concept of a reserve fund, where if, for example, Zcoin price goes up, and anything above roughly, I mean, it's not going to be like totally exact, because of the nature of fluctuation in prices. If there's a significant excess over 100,000 per month given to the core team, we had proposed that amount to go into a separate reserve fund that can only be used in the very specific circumstances, like for example, code audits, bug bounties, or let's say if the price of Zcoin goes down too low, that we may need a subsidization of core development, and any other stuff that the community has approval on. I'm a bit concerned at this because although it was actually my suggestion that did this, you know, 100K a month, if we do want to expand the team, like let's say we do expand to like 15 or 6 or 20 developers or so, it's not a lot, especially with all this increased costs with like market making, the PR companies and marketing. People have been saying like marketing, 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 and those stuff don't come cheap. Now, because we've already committed to the reserve fund, I am proposing that basically that means it is very clear that development fund is basically should be primarily on development and research. Anything on marketing cannot be held on us again because the funds are not that much. Like right now, at current prices, we're getting about 58,000 US dollars per month, and that pays for like 11 or 12 people. And that's just their salaries, and then you have your market making expenses, you have your integrations, we have all this other stuff. Like you want us to get on like this YouTube influencer and whatnot. Those generally don't come free. There are minor exceptions to the rule, but all this costs money. So I just want people to be realistic about what we can do with the funds. So I don't know. I mean, because we've already committed to the reserve fund, I feel that we should go ahead with it. But if you want us to have a bigger role, which I'm kind of like on the fence about, because I feel that it shouldn't be always about us. This amount of money, you say 100,000, is not enough to do all of this type of things. Um, so yeah, just in kind of comparison, like some of our competitors, they have budgets of about overheads about like 200 over 1,000 a month, even though with a smaller market cap. So just giving you a heads up. Now, just before I answer Jack Mod's question, does anyone have any questions on this and basically the development reward? I mean, we've gone through all this before, but for the benefit of people who are just coming to this, does anyone have any questions? Yeah. Nice memes.
You may want to. You said you would answer Jack's question. I think he lost connection though.
Okay. What? Who? I lost connection or Jack lost connection?
Oh, he's back.
Yep, he did. Okay. So, does if anyone has no questions on this development reward reserve fund thingy, I will answer Jack Mod's question. I'll wait for a few more seconds, or whoever for your hold your peace. All right. Okay. So let me take a look at Jack Mod's question. Does Spork after 1 year mean that development's expected to be complete by then? So basically, I mean, Lelantus chain loss instances. I mean, well, they're all coming in the next coming weeks or months, depending which feature you're talking about. So that's the activation time of this. Like, I think Spork is actually quite a bad name. It should be just like a emergency switch. So this emergency switch would start from the activation date of, let's say, like Lelantus or something like that, and that will run for 1 year from that point. So let's say if we release Lelantus in October with an activation date in November, then the emergency switch will have a validity of until November 2021. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Okay. I am going to move on. Jackmot.
He is typing.
Oh, he's typing. Okay, great. Okay, ta-da, rebrand work update. That's been this has been a really tough topic to deal with. Um we've been talking about this for years. um and there's I would say like the community is kind of divided on it, and we just kind of had to make a executive decision here. So we are moving forward with a rebrand, and I know that some of you may think that, oh yeah, Zcoin um has a lot of brand name value, right? Like many people have heard of us. Zcoin is well known. I kind of don't agree because everyone, when they talk about privacy coins, it's like Monero, Zcash, even Grin, which has a much lower market cap than us, and sometimes even Verge, unfortunately. Um, Anchor, can you wait till I finish talking before you start asking? um, so the new name has been chosen. The .org domain has been purchased. It is short and easy to say. There's no coin or cash in it. We want to move away from that. There are no letter Z's, so that means there's no confusion that you are a Zcash fork. And the name actually ties in with our burn and redeem mechanism. So I personally think this is a good name. We've workshopped it with a few others, with like stakeholders in the community, generally positive. We cannot please everyone, but I think the main thing that we have to realize is that although Zcoin has a lot of sentimental value for the community, and especially myself and all this merch that I have, um, when I monitor the social media, I deal with people who outsiders to the project looking us into us, right? Because members of the community generally only see within the community and maybe a little bit outside. But when I'm dealing with people who want to work with us, like let's say wallets, exchanges, even like the average Joe that's coming in, or you look at social media, there's a lot of confusion. People still think people think that Zcoin is Z Classic for some reason. Even very well-known people in the space think that oh, this is the project that scam people, and they mix us all up, right? Or they just look at the name and like, this is a Zcash fault. That's the unfortunate reality of it. Even when I go to conferences, there is this confusion all the time, even with people with they are kind of in the space, and even for people that are aware of what Zcoin is, they often say Zcash accidentally than Zcoin. So realistically, Zcash has really, really taken the Z name over. And I know some of you think like, oh well, let's just keep on hammering it so that people get confused of Zcoin and Zcash. I mean, I to me that's a really, really uphill battle. uh, but yeah, so right. So I feel really strongly about the rebrand. I've gotten a lot of flack of it, but this is the decision that we've made to move forward because we want to appeal to new people that may have never heard of Zcoin before, and we think that we are a really unique privacy project with our own unique technology, and we should not be judged over our name. The logo and branding design work has all been done. I'm really liking the look of it. And the new website is being worked on. Probably sometime next week. I'll get a draft to take a look. It'll be right now. Our website is kind of messy with all this information here and there, and like the technology stuff is just like bunches of like meaningless graphs and stuff like that. So it'll be totally reworked to be modern, clean, and I guess much more minimalistic. Of course, we have to do all the wallet rebrands with all the new colors. And the idea is to review this during the Lelantus launch. So we are planning to probably review this during the launch of the Lelantus binary. That means when we announce, all right, like use this binary for Lelantus, which will activate in, let's say, 1 month's time. Uh, we're planning to do just one large push with Lelantus out and the rebrand together. So I hope that, yeah, if you want to know, our new color is red-ish. I'm not going to give you the exact tone. Yeah, because it's all about burning stuff, burning coins. So yeah, does anyone have any feedback on that? Uh, and I hope that answers your question, Anchor. So I guess you are looking at sometime in October. Fingers crossed. Anyone have any questions on this or violent objections? All right, this is a good question that David brought up. He asked, how does brand change work with exchanges? Do they just switch the name? So we've spoken to a few exchanges and they said, no problem with the change of name, but what about the ticker? Now, because XZC has no, like when we do the rebrand, the name has totally no similarity to XZC. uh, I don't know if the ticker still makes sense. Of course, a lot of the exchanges, like for example, Binance has actually spoken to us to say that if you are changing the ticker, a lot of people would lose their trading history for the coin because when they change the ticker, it has to be treated almost like a new asset. It's a technical way to do it. They cannot just change the thing. Like it's kind of like what happened with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin ABC. You kind of have to make sure that people don't like, oh my god, where's my Zcoin, it's totally gone, and then they realize, oh no, I have this other new, I have to be very careful not to mention the new name, this new thingy, and like, where's my coins. That is the only thing that they're trying to avoid. So I'm in favor of a ticket change, or else it just totally doesn't make sense, but I'm just putting out that option there. Yeah.
I'm in favor of a ticket change for sure.
Yep. Okay, anyone have any other opinions on that? I mean, it is going to have slight inconvenience, but I think overall it we should be looking like, let's do it right.
Sorry, Fred is typing. Jagmon is
uh,
typing
how do you tell?
on Telegram.
Oh, on Telegram, okay. All right. Because I'm on Discord, I don't see it. With the no, I don't think so. The Aussie ban on Binance is a very strange one on privacy coins. I'm actually planning to write a post on this, and Moneros also has a legal opinion coming out on why privacy coins should be banned. I'm very curious on what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, like it's so ridiculous, right? Like Verge doesn't have any privacy, but they ban them because they call themselves a privacy coin. It's obvious that they don't know shit. Yeah. Right. Um. Okay. If there's no question, I'll talk about the hot stuff, DeFi. Right. We've already announced the first integration. First of all, do I need to talk about what DeFi is? I think we have a really detailed forum post on that on other forums, so check that out. And the basic idea is that all this DeFi, decentralized finance stuff, is happening right now on Ethereum, maybe a little bit on Tron, but all the focus has been on the Ethereum ecosystem, and there have been other efforts, like for example with Beam, they want to build their own DeFi ecosystem, which right now in its current state, honestly, isn't DeFi. It's just like tokenization. Um, I guess the definition of DeFi is very wide, but I wouldn't call it what we commonly consider a DeFi. And rather than trying to build this right on our Zcoin, we have decided the more like, okay, let's go where all the DeFi action is happening. And basically, first of all, that reduces our integration time because after all, DeFi is still a big experiment. And we get to go where everything's happening, where all the interest is there, so that we don't have to do like massive re-education of how to use DeFi on Zcoin. We just need to like integrate into the Ethereum ecosystem. Now we've mentioned our partnership with Stakehound, and basically, Stakehound is a very simple service. It's about allowing Zcoin that is in a Z node to be represented as a token on the Ethereum blockchain as a ERC20 token, and it does have a unique ability. So, like for example, like right now, let's say you have 1,000 Zcoin, right? And in the Z node, uh, that should translate to roughly like 1,000 stake Zcoin on the Stakehound system, right? You'll be issued like 1,000 tokens of that. Now, let's say if your stake Z if your Z node earns, let's say 7.5, which is a Z node reward. Now, your tokens on the Ethereum blockchain will not stay at 1,000 stake Zcoin. It would actually rebase and show 1,007.5. So your coins would always represent coins in a Z node. So that's quite a unique behavior. So it's not just a flat ERC20 token. Um, I think some of you may have already given it a shot on the Robson testnet, which is basically Ethereum's testnet with staked Zcoin. The mechanism is really simple. I think it's going to be audited by QuantStamp, but I don't foresee any security risk here. You're still using an institutional custodian. So that's one of the other benefits, which is by this integration, we get institutional grade custodian support straight away. So if like institutions want to buy us, if exchanges want to integrate us, whatnot, there is now an option. Like previously, there was no way, like institutions don't actually want to hold it and deal with hardware wallets themselves. They rather pay that 0.3% or 0.2% and not have that risk. So this is another great thing about having this integration as well. Now, some of you may say that, well, isn't this kind of like against decentralization? Yes, in the one sense that there is reliance on the custodian, but the plan is not to just have one custodian, is to have several custodians. And right now, all nodes will, which is a very, I think one of the major masternode providers for Zcoin, will be providing the masternode service. So, there is that layer of abstraction. There'll be Stakehound, the custodian, and there'll be all nodes. So there'll be like three different parties, and this is not removing the requirement. I mean, like, you can always host your own Z node. I guess the idea of this is that so much of our Z nodes are locked in Z nodes. You can't trade them, you can't do anything with them. It's just earning your Z node rewards. um the ability to have stake Zcoin allows people to say, "Oh, yep, I want to buy Zcoin, but I want it to be in a Znode, but I can't afford 1,000 Zcoin, so I can buy this stake Zcoin and earn returns on top of it, and I don't have to host my Znodes myself. It's like foolproof." And I can go on decentralized exchanges. I can go and get a collateralized loan for this on Ethereum using Compound or whatever. And I guess the idea is about increasing utility of Zcoin using this stakehound system. Over the next few weeks, we will be having AMAs and introductions to the system, and we expect this product to be launched in early October. But you can give it a shot right now. It's all ready. Yeah. So Now, another thing that I want to bring up is that this is not the only DeFi integration. This is kind of like the more like trusted method because that involves custodians and stuff like that. But there is also going to be soon to be something like Ren Zcoin, which is through the Ren protocol, and that's a lot more trustless in the sense that the Zcoin is not held by a custodian, but is actually held by the Ren protocol's networks nodes, which are split up in multisig. And what that allows you to do is to bridge in and out of the Ethereum system relatively trustlessly. You don't have to go through KYC. It does it in an hour or so. So I think that's a great way to complement like stake Zcoin, and then you have the more trustless Run Zcoin, and we can even create pools with Run Zcoin on one side and stake Zcoin on the other side. So that let's say, okay, I want to move my stake Zcoin into native Zcoin without using KYC. I can switch it to Run Zcoin and then unwrap it and have it exist back in native Zcoin form. So yes, I think I'm really excited about this. I think many may not know the potential of DeFi. It is a lot of hype right now. It's a lot of crap right there, but there are really, really interesting things that are being built, especially really usable decentralized exchanges, stuff like Uniswap, or Balancer or Bancor and whatnot, and especially with all these exchange bans, we want to make sure that we are easily available on DEXs and makes it much harder to ban us completely. So that's our take. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, no questions. All right. This should be a controversial topic. I hope somebody has some opinions on it. We've been talking about a mining algorithm change for, I don't know, at least several months, maybe a year. And the idea is that MTP is a massive bloat. It's kind of served its purpose, but each block, even though it's freaking empty, has to consume 200 kilobytes. And when you're communicating with the mining pool, you keep on have to send 200 kilobytes, 200 kilobytes, 200 kilobytes, 200 kilobytes. It's really, really intensive. It's kept nice hash off, but then it also keeps other pools from integrating us because there's a lot of costs. Like, I would say like an order of magnitude or two to actually in terms of cost in maintaining MTP. It is unique, but I think that FPGAs are coming up really soon. I can't review my sources, but I have good sources that reveal that people are very keen to develop FPGAs on MTP, and they've been trying to ask me to see whether we're going to move to prop power anytime soon. Because if we're going to move to prop power or something else, they're kind of screwed, so they're not going to even bother with that effort. But if we're going to continue staying with MTP, FPGAs are definitely coming. Now, because of the with MTP being so big, we cannot also reduce the block time any further because 5 minutes is actually really long. But because of such a large thing, such a large bloat, I mean, our blockchain is already really bloaty at the moment. Um, like something like prop power can reduce our times to maybe 2 minutes, 1 minute even, with not a lot of bloat. So I'm really in favor of that, even with instant send. And I do think it's a better protocol overall. It's been audited. The implementation work's already done. It just needs to be tweaked. It retains our GPU mining community because right now we're all being mined by GPUs, and we can tweak parameters to make it our own. So it's not as if like, oh yeah, everyone else is using this, because prop power is kind of like a different. You have like little levers that you can turn and kind of make it your own. There's also been suggestions of, well, why don't you go through RandomX, which is more of a CPU focus. Some people believe that this is more egalitarian because not everyone has a powerful graphics card, everyone has a CPU. But it is also subject to botnet farming. Means like people who infect other people's computers. I mean, we were just actually talking about it earlier, and like there's apparently there's a mining farm in New York that has like 3% of XMR hash rate. I don't know how true that is, but it kind of shows that it can be centralized because of the existence of botnets. And the other thing is that it would alienate the current mining community, because if you have like powerful graphics card, you're not necessarily going to switch to CPU mining. So that would mean a totally new user base. So I guess people have to say, well, do we really want CPU mining, or do we want to stick to GPUs? There's a really interesting proposal, or the Diego from who works for Monero. So obviously he is a bit biased, but it is a very interesting thing to consider. I'm personally not too in favor of it, but I also see the benefit of it, which is to be merge mine with Monero. What that means is that we don't even have to keep our mining ecosystem. Why don't let's just use Monero's mining ecosystem with their many pools, with their many miners, with all their security, and when they mine Monero, they also get Zcoin on the side. So that means we're kind of piggybacking off their security. Like Tari, which is also a Fluffy Ponies project, is also planning to do this. It offers, I guess, decent security, but it does mean that we become dependent on another chain for our security, which is probably more secure than we are right now, just because of the sheer size of their mining community. But personally, I don't like being reliant on something else. Of course, we could maybe I guess the real benefit of merge mining with Monero is that we are exposing ourselves to a privacy focused community that has been increasingly warm towards Zcoin, and we potentially have people that are passionate about Monero coming over to Zcoin and earning Zcoin as well. It is a big risk, we know, because effectively it's almost like an airdrop to XMR miners. They were mining XMR and suddenly they get free Zcoin. Whether they keep it, whether they dump it, or whether they will come into the community and like, wow, Zcoin's a really good project, remains to be seen. But it's a very interesting proposal anyway. Stay with MTP is one thing. I mean, I know that DJM, who obviously develop our miner, would like to stay with MTP. I also understand that, given that he spends so much time on it. But to me, it's not a great protocol just because of the space bloat, and it's just not sustainable in the long term. Um, Now, there's been like other proposals. I haven't heard a good one yet. This everyone coming out of their own like mining algorithm. Like first of all, we've been through it. We we spent 2 years on MTP, and the first iteration was completely broken. So it is super difficult to make a good mining algorithm that's not homebrewed, that goes through audits, and then we had to develop. And honestly, I don't want to go and like have to spend resources on our team and distract from privacy just on the mining algorithm when there's already audited and good algorithms out there ready to use, just for the sake of being different. That's my personal point of view. And that's my question. And David, if you have switched your view to prop power, you need to amend your vote on the poll.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm definitely against the third one, the merge mine, because if we do the rebranding, they might start calling us Monero.
Yeah, well, quite different, but okay. Does anyone have any feedback on this? First of all, this is just to
Oh,
explain it on the call.
can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I wanted to ask about ProgPal. It's cool that it's been like audited. Are any coins out there right now implementing and using it? So that's out there in the real world right now. So it's
Yes.
like at least it's building history and being battle tested because yeah,
Correct.
there were other hacks that even
Yep.
though that were highly audited.
True.
Vulnerabilities were found. So I'm just so just going off this, I just feel
Uh,
like Clubhouse still
Raven
adequate.
Raven coin currently uses a variant of it, which is basically prop power with some like small tweaks to it. Um, I forgot what they call it. They call it kapow, like of the raven noise, cow cow. And I believe Digibyte is also including prop pow into one of their algorithms. First of all, I'm not in favor of like mixing algorithms here and there. It's just very meh, and it complicates things a lot. Yeah, Veil is also planned. But I spoke to Blonde Frogs, who did the implementation of PropPow on Ravencoin, and he says that he's really pleased with the effects of Ravencoin on his project. Now I've spoke to Loki who used RandomX, and they're like, I hate this so much that we're not having proof of work anymore, because they were farmed by botnets and totally wrecked. That was what uh, I can't quote who told me this, but it was one of their team members who told me this, and basically they didn't like RandomX at all. So that's currently like the prop power landscape. It has a lot of and the audits for prop power, if I'm not mistaken, Trail Bits also looked at it, and it's not just one audit, it's like several audits. So I'm decently confident of it.
Yeah,
And
it was going to be included in Ethereum, right? So they had to go through like a massive number of
correct.
checks.
Yep. No, I think the main reason why it wasn't included in Ethereum was, well, some people said that it distracted from the movement to proof of stake, and because that's where they went and go, and they're like, why are we bothering with this? And there was also a lot of FUD on Christie, who said that, oh, she had ulterior motives, and there was also a group of people who were developing F hash ASICs, who really didn't want prop power to come to light because that would have meant the investment is thrown away. Now, is prop power open to mining with FPGAs? It's actually designed not to allow it, because of there's this random element that keeps on changing, so that it kind of has to recompile. So if you're using an FPGA, you kind of, well, you need to have a new bit stream every like few minutes or so, which is not really practical. So yeah, that's basically um prop power is probably as FPGA resistant as you can be, from the experts that I've spoken to. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess I was also like had the same kind of feelings with the merge mining like idea with XMR, because then it feels like it's going in the ICO like airdrop,
Yeah.
the airdrop kind of phase. So then I'm just thinking like, yeah, were there any real success stories that any projects that like had an airdrop and now it's withstand the test of time? The only thing I could kind of think of was like Stellar, an airdrop in exchange for an email, and they're just still around. I can't say if they're like, oh, that was a success, but I think they were
Mm.
more often than not
You mean
people were
Stella?
just like, yeah,
But remember, with Stella, all the coins are in their like, I think more than 50% or 60% of the supply is with the core team. So obviously, an airdrop to them doesn't really mean as much to us. Like, it's like, oh yeah, here, throw my money that I've created on you, right? But with Zcoin, well, that means we are giving our emission to XMR miners, which I don't know how I feel about that. It's basically, it's all win for Monero, uh, questionable benefits for Zcoin. But of course, Diego feels strongly. He has some arguments. I'm personally not convinced, but I thought, in the sake of bringing options to the community, this is a really interesting idea. and there are some merits to it, but I'm kind of leaning against it. But I appreciate everyone's opinions on this. Yeah. Wow, receipts are like on a roll with all the memes.
I have meme generator opened in one tab, Google Images opened in another, and I'm just kind of running at it.
Okay, so I guess no one has an opinion. I mean, like, it looks like prop pal-ish. We're not in any hurry to do this because we have so much stuff to do right now. We just want to focus on getting Lelantus out of the door, and then we can look at prop pal. Rasik, just to let you know, I've also spoke to Blonde Frogs, to who said that he can also probably do it because he has experience doing it. So just giving you a heads up on that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prog Pow is my fan favorite right now. I'm the only one that I'm really against is kind of I guess MTP, sticking with MTP and merge mining. Just because with merge mining, the issue is that it ties us too closely to another project, and that
Yeah.
may not always be a good thing in the long term, especially if you're. And I hate to say this, I know that there's some pretty good connections to the Monero space, but eventually they're going to become a competitor if we're successful.
Yep. It's kind of funny, right? Like, it's like, oh yeah, we're removing any sort of confusions with Zcash, but let's marry into Monero. Uh, I mean, that's how I see it. But yeah. Right. Oh, I remember. I think was it David who talked about some like algorithm, like mixing like 12, 13 algorithms together. That generally is
16.
yeah, 16 X16R and whatnot. That actually is like I would say the X12, X11, X16 has been all kind of like shown to be total crap. There are other methods like done by Verge and Digibyte with chain, which change like they have like different algorithms together. I've spoken to some experts and they say that it's not really great for security, although I would say Digibyte people would disagree. I'm just not in favor of like having so many algorithms. It just seems like I don't know. It's like Rojak. It's like chop suey. You just throw everything in. You might as well just pick one algorithm that does what it does well, rather than having a whole bunch of different algorithms. And sometimes the weakest link is, I mean, the security of the whole system can be like denied by your weakest link, which I think happened with Verge. They were attacked on their weakest algorithm. Yeah. So yep, if there's no feedback, please vote on the forums and let us know. We'll probably close this off maybe in 1 or 2 months. We've already been talking about this for so long. I just want to get a clear direction. There's no like violent objections so that we can move forward with this and we can deter the FPGAs on MTP. All right, just a quick one. We have a yep. Sorry, did someone want to
Oh,
say
yeah, I was just going to ask real fast, like, I know you mentioned the poll will be out there for about a month. What is, and you also mentioned that any work here would kind of take a backseat to some of the other high priority items. But what do you have like a tentative target of when any change to the algorithm would be targeted for implementation?
I would say that if like Lelantus everything goes well, we can even change by the end of the year because the work for implementing ProcPow isn't a lot because it's more or less already done, right? It's more
Right.
about giving enough time for the ecosystem, like all the mining pools and everything, which I don't think it'll be that difficult because they're already existing mining pools for prop power. They just probably have to change a few tweaks. Maybe we have to give a little bit of time for miner developers to modify their miners to do the tweaks. But I don't think it's going to take more than like 2 months or so like that. So if we go ahead of it, if we launch the landers, everything's smooth, we get all our thing out the door, we can possibly get it in by the end of the year or maybe like the first quarter of next year, depending on I guess whether the community really wants it. And yeah, there's something that's related to that I want to talk at the end, but that's the current situation right now. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Right. Okay, we have two. We have a sloth joining us called Spork. Anonymous developer, has done quite a lot of work. It's kind of working like Sam. Well, part time, in between part time to full time. Not totally full time, but kind of part time. But I'm really happy that he or she has joined. And we have another full-time developer called Rustam that will be working on primarily working on our GUI wallet. And he's currently doing the coin swap features that you can swap Bitcoin to Zcoin and Zcoin to other coins within the wallet, just to make life easier for people. So yep, that's currently being. We're happy to have additions. We're actually actively hiring. Hopefully the price improves. Uh, yeah. Just saw Jack Mott's comment. But yeah, so we have two new developers and we're looking for new team as long as the price improves. Because yeah. So okay, before we go to community questions and discussion, I actually added something on. I don't want to like deal with it right now, but I just wanted to raise it, which is the chain swap and tail emission. Um, these are not high priority items, but these are some things that we are thinking about. God, well, boy. Okay. The first thing is what is a chain swap? So, as you know, I think our blockchain is how big now? Anwar, is it 35, 40 gigabytes? Our blockchain size? Oh, wait, Anwar's not here.
40 something.
40 something. And it's growing at a huge rate, right? And it takes a very long time to sync. And there's so much legacy stuff on board. There is Zero Coin. There's going to be Sigma, even after we move to Lelantus. There's 3 or 4 mining algorithms there. And there's all this hacky workarounds that we had to put in from previous mistakes that we made. So this like the code base is more complicated than it needs to be, and it's more bloated than it needs to be. We want the project like especially once we get down the Lelantus and everything down pat, we kind of want to move towards a very clean code base that doesn't have to retain any of the zero coin code, doesn't have to retain any of the Sigma code, doesn't it's just like totally clean, right? Doesn't have to, and makes our project a lot easier to develop on and for other people to look at it. It wouldn't take so much time to sync, especially those early blocks or the later blocks. And especially once we've already moved to something like PropPow, verification will be a lot quicker. The whole experience will be a lot better. But it does mean totally chucking all that history that is within Zcoin and then kind of doing a snapshot. So a snapshot means like you do a snapshot, you see everyone's balances, and then you move it on to the new chain. It can be a bit messy, especially if people like how we deal with the privacy commitments. That's something that we need to think about. But I do want to maybe like do this maybe sometime next year, not anytime soon, where we'll basically say, okay, this chain, we're just stopping it. We're going to start a new chain. Respect all your balances. It's still the same project, but it's just like removing all the legacy stuff. I just wanted to have a very quick, like, gauge of sentiment on this. Receipt has probably some experience of people who have done chain swap successfully and some not so successfully. But yeah, before he speaks, does anyone have any questions on this?
For chain swaps would okay, so I guess by the time that would happen next year with Lelantus, would all our coins have to be on this what's it called, not the transparency layer, or they can still keep it in the
Yep, that's the open question. I'm trying to do it, see if there's a way that we can. I don't know whether it's possible to say like, okay, yeah, you have to redeem your your coins within 6 months or something like that. I'm a bit scared of that. That's my only like concern, right? If like huge amounts are anonymized and you have to get people to like uh, re. I mean, I think there were some cases like Rasik probably has some experience with it where people didn't redeem and then they lost their coins if they didn't look at it for the last 6 months. But I think that this is a good time to do it while we are relatively small, rather than when we're really big and then it's going to be a nightmare. But yeah, maybe Rusty, could you shed some light on that? Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a few different ways that chain swaps can happen. Uh, Primarily, it can be broken down into two categories: decentralized and centralized. On the centralized side, there's primarily things like where you have a centralized platform that's facilitating a swap, and with that, there's obviously a lifespan on how long you can keep that up. Now, there's a lot of situations in that area where people get these centralized sites up, and you'll have people coming by 3-4 years later saying, "Hey, I haven't really been paying attention to my bags. Where are my coins?" And that can lead to a lot of issues, and especially legal ones, as well as bad sentiment when you have people that were just hodling that realize that they've lost their money because they weren't active on the network, which uh, I personally am against the centralized model for swaps just because you shouldn't require user action at a specific point in time in order for them to retain funds that they rightfully purchased. A better option is really the Komodo style, where what they do is they actually use the public keys that are available on the network to derive new addresses that are on the new chain, and then the private keys on the old network can be used to claim the coins on the new network in a completely decentralized manner by assigning the new addresses the information or the amount of coins that each address had in the Genesis block, which is pretty cool. Now, I've seen both ways go wrong and both ways go right. For the most part, the ways that if you're doing like the Genesis where it's converting from one private key to another, the three main ways I've seen it fail are the processes aren't intuitive enough that someone has to like go into their wallet and like manually export every single private key and import it into the new wallet. That doesn't really work, right? When you're especially considering that with the Zcoin, we've gone through the process and have derivative addresses as well as mnemonics, right? So it's like it seems like a very big hassle to have everyone manually export their private keys and convert. So an automatic process needs to be developed. Uh, Second way I've seen this stuff fail is uh, it's not clear that the addresses have changed or the scheme has changed, and exchanges don't update, which leads to issues on that side. So really, it all comes down to communication and ease of access in the swap process. Now, with the centralized swap process, I've seen it fail a lot worse. Like one of the ways that I've seen it like crash and burn is there was like I believe a year-long swap period for a project I was working with, and at the end of the year they pushed it on the website, and like less than a week later they started getting uh, I guess legal notices and things along those lines because they had roughly about like $3 million worth of people that were trying to claim the week after the swaps closed, and because there's no legal basis for I guess devaluing someone's coins. Of course, it could be argued that creating a new chain is its own thing, et cetera, et cetera. But it really depends on what the starting point was. Now, with something like Zcoin, that's not as much of an issue. But I personally feel that if you're going to be dealing as a FOSS project, to make sure to keep everything fair and equal. That someone who's not watching the project actively doesn't lose their funds in the process. I don't know if that covered what information you were hoping for me to convey.
That's fine. I mean, like, just letting you know that it's not we don't need any sort of say uh like decision right now. I just want to float the idea, and open a forum discussion and have like informal discussions before we make the decision. There's no hurry, but I thought it'd be good to bring it up right now.
It'd be cool to have a nice fresh code base to work with because I know there's a lot of technical debt.
Yep, yep,
A lot of
yep.
it.
I really would like that as well. Okay, right. So There's a quick question from Hakushu to say that why halving at this strange block? Because remember, um, we switched from 10 minutes to 5 minutes halfway through. Yeah. And therefore, we kind of had to adjust it based on the time that we switched from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. So it's not going to be a nice number. Because when we switched it from 10 minutes to 5 minutes, then the blocks come twice as fast, and then we had to adjust it to make sure that the supply schedule is the same. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So we're open to questions. I have another 10 minutes or so before I need to go off. But does anyone have any outstanding questions that they would like to ask? Anything they would like to raise?
So
Yeah.
there was one in the chat from Thorfield about asking about the mobile wallet with Sigma privacy.
All right, that's a good one. There has been some bad news on that end. So actually, everything has been completed. We were waiting for reviews from Edge Wallet for like ages, but they then said we are completely revamping our Edge Wallet, like completely, and therefore all the work that you've done for the past I don't know how long is now irrelevant. Um, which is a real big bummer because we spent so much time on this. Now, all's not lost. Some of the work can be reused, and we have been given guidance on to do the Lelantus library in such a way. Because now we're like, it's no point to work on Sigma right now and Lelantus around the corner. To do the Lelantus library in a way that is more of a plugin. That means once we do it in like a SDK format, that means any sort of wallet can use this a lot easier. And we're moving down that path. It's a huge setback in the sense that we did everything. And I did ask like, oh, can we just like launch? And they're like, they're gonna change their whole architecture really soon. So there's not much point to do that. So yeah, I guess that's a setback, but we're confident of maybe like the new thing is probably going to be better because once we do a SDK, we can even come up with our own native wallet. I did discuss on maybe perhaps self-releasing that Edge wallet with Sigma thing. That means we just release it on ourselves. But because the way that we coded it was to actually rely on Edge wallet's infrastructure, to recode that and do all that ourselves is not going to be trivial. And you're like, at that point, you're like, maybe let's just forget about it. Take the parts that we can use and go into an SDK. Um, yeah, so that has been a bit of bad news on our end, but in the long run, I think we do need to do it in an SDK format, which would allow a bigger variety of wallets to support us. Yeah, because this Sigma wallet was meant to have been launched in March. And I don't know. I mean, like Edge Wallet isn't charging us anything, so we can't actually like chase them to like review our stuff or to have meetings with us. So I also understand their point of view. They can't just hold back the development just because of a Sigma wallet, right? So it's a bit unfortunate, but the mobile team that has developed it is still motivated to come up with the Lelantus library, and I think with the experience from this one, it should be a lot quicker to do it. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions?
Someone in the chat just had a really good idea. I believe it's Leronic. I don't know how to pronounce that. They had a really good idea to have a Jitsi call and pairing that with Muggles Pizza thing. We should definitely have something for the Halving. Just
Yeah,
everyone
that'd be
hang out.
cool. Yeah, okay. I'll speak to Muggers about that. That sounds good. Um, We actually wanted to have something like an unceremony for Lelantus launch. We're still figuring out the details of that because like Zcash had their ceremony and we don't need a ceremony, but I think we can do something along those lines. Yeah.
Any excuse to fly over radiation, right?
Right. And listing chances of Zcoin and Binance US. We've spoken to them, and there is a cost associated with it. Honestly, I'm not so sure how important Binance US is. There aren't a lot of people using it. Um, but we will see. Once they have more regulatory clarity on privacy coins, it'll be the path is a lot clear. But there is an associated marketing cost, which is not trivial. When you're talking about Binance, you're talking about six figures at least. So yeah.
So we have this is kind of interesting. So Binance US's volume is with all respect really shitty. But one way that we can actually utilize the American market is the fact that we have both ChangeNow and Vertbase that both support fiat purchasing of Zcoin, right? Now, neither of them actually give access to the market itself. I think we have some other exchanges that offer that, but this might be a cool opportunity to kind of push Vertbase and ChangeNow as alternatives. Because right now we have they're kind of sitting around with like extremely low volume, but
Mhm.
extremely like functional ways to purchase. And they're actually one of the Vertbase is actually one of the few. Oh, sorry, they rebranded to some Sequoia, something like
Yeah.
that. But
Sequoia X or something. Yeah.
yeah, I will pay them to unrebrand. But anyways, they actually have some of the only credit card options available in the crypto space right now for purchasing in the U.S. So it's like no one really accepts Amex except for Vertbase.
Mm, mm. Okay. Yeah. Is it possible to have alliance with online business African pay you already? Um. Yeah. I mean, feel free to post in the forums, and that I am not familiar with who they are, but maybe yeah, this is probably more up Rasik's alley on that. Okay, we have 7 more minutes. Does anyone have any other questions?
Zcoin pizza anniversary soon.
Oh yeah, right. We should do that. When's that?
21st September 2017.
Oh, my headset. I've taken out my sponges and because I'm drying them and it's hurting me. ZEC listed. Now US user can't buy Zcoin. No, you can buy off Sequoia X. There's Bittrex as well. We are on Bittrex US. So there are still US options. Yeah. Okay, so yep, I think that's a good time to wrap up unless you have any final stuff. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for all the participation. Again, I will be not as active on the chat because it's just such a time sink. As you can see, we're much more. I'm starting to write a lot more on the forums, which has been a much better place to express more eloquent thoughts. So thanks everyone for coming, and we'll post the minutes and the recording of this meeting up later. Thanks so much, guys, and stay safe. Bye.